everyone. This is Sincerae, a teacher Sincerae's channel, and welcome once again. Well, on my most recent video that I made before this one, previous to this one, I mentioned that I was going to change the name of my channel from Teacher Sincerae's channel to Teacher Sincerae's Books and Talks. So this is one of my this is my first official talk. I've done other talks on here, but back when my channel, I was doing sort of a hodgepodge of different things. But I decided that I wanted to use my channel also to talk about some things that were on my mind and my observations of different things in life and social situations in the in society, and maybe a little bit of politics, maybe a little dash of that. And just some, things, common sense things and things that are on my mind. Okay. So I decided this would be my first official talk on here, after the name change. Okay. So, so what I've really been thinking about, because I am an educator. Okay. I mentioned previous videos, my background. I have a master's degree in English education and a bachelor's in English literature and a minor in art, painting and drawing. I don't do any painting anymore. I would love to get back. I have my art supplies waiting around, but I don't have much time to do that. But I do get my writing in, because basically being an English major in my country means that basically it has to do with writing. And you can teach writing, you can become a journalist, and you might hear some thunder, because this is Friday night and it is a thunderstorm on. We've been having some pretty rough weather, particularly starting back in the spring. And so, from time to time, it's sunny and then it's kind of rough weather here. But I decided I want to talk about the importance of women and girls being educated. Okay. Now, this is 2025, and you would think, well, this is common sense. And why would I be talking about something like this? Because you would think maybe this is something that somebody might talk about maybe 40, 50, 70 years ago or something like that. But it's needed to talk about it now. And I don't know the situation, the way the world is going to be in the coming years because of all this stuff with AI and so many changes, and we live in a very volatile time. But I did so much want to talk about education, because I teach educated women. Okay, and I have friends abroad that are educated women. Okay, they are educated and they are professionals. So I really want to talk about this because a lot of the women and the people that I know, some of them, they come from countries where women are, quote, oppressed, as they say, or at least that is the media stereotype, that, oh, they're oppressed and they can't do anything. And then you have images of, say, like Afghanistan and Taliban, and, oh, women and girls can't go to school. Okay. Now, I don't know the full situation in Afghanistan. I'm not going to talk about that anyway, because my topic is a little bit different. Okay, but I want to talk about this because it is very, very important that women and girls get their education. And this has nothing to do with feminism and, myself, I'm not a feminist. I don't consider myself a feminist. But I consider myself as a practical type person, that I think you need to think in a practical way and try to live your life in a practical way. Okay. You have to live according to what the situation is in society in your day and time. Now, I'm not saying do immoral stuff, but say, like, for example, when my grandparents were living, there weren't many opportunities for people. Certainly not for a lot of black people, and not even many opportunities for white people. Okay. There just weren't many choices. Okay, like we have more choices now, but the choices might be being narrowed down with all the technology, but we'll see. Those of us that are still around, we'll see. But it's very important that women and girls get education. Now, I feel I'm not a feminist, because I feel like a lot of times with feminists, they feel that they have to compete with men, and I'm not trying to compete with men. Okay, I'm just doing my own thing, what I feel is best for me, that follows my skills and my talents and my knowledge and my education. So I'm not out here trying to compete with men. Another thing too with certain feminist thought is, oh, you can just do what you want and live as, as an immoral or amoral lifestyle as you like. I don't agree with that, because I'm a devout Christian, and I don't, it's things that I just will not do. Okay. We have to have certain standards. Okay. You have a lot of people that are against religion. It's religion is oppressive, but no, I feel that religion is, it sets boundaries. You have to have rules in life. You can't just be free and wild and do what you want. So as far as me, I'm not a feminist, but I am very much for women and girls and being educated. And this goes the same for men as well. But often, because men take the lead, men, it's sort of understood generally with men and boys growing up that you have a certain responsibility, and you have to sort of man the ship, okay, keep things going, okay. But women and girls need to be educated, okay. And so getting back to and they need to be taught to value education. Now, myself, I was taught to value education because my father was the one that really wanted me to be educated. My mother too, but my father had his reasons, because my father grew up in a home where he grew up in a dysfunctional home, unlike my mother. My mother didn't. She grew up in a home where things were stable. Her parents were devout Christians. They followed the religion. They didn't just talk it. They actually walked the walk. My grandfather drank when he was a young person, but my grandmother actually left him, and this was back in the 1930s. She left him. She left. Okay. And she finally went back when her aunt encouraged her to, and my grandfather was disciplined enough that he just completely stopped drinking. He didn't drink again. He never drank any alcohol again. Okay. So, but my father wasn't as lucky. His home was more chaotic, and his father drank on the weekends. And my grandfather, he said, could be a terror. Okay. So my father, when I was growing up, my father did not want, he saw what his mother went through, his sisters went through. He only had one sister that had a husband that treated her right. And because of her mental illness and situation with her, I don't know the full story. I've been told by somebody that knew my aunt that my aunt, the reason why she was the way she was, because she couldn't have children. I don't know. My father never said that. But she had a good husband, and she threw it all away. She did. Whereas the other ones did not. His sisters had a hard time. Okay. And there was nobody there to really protect them and tell them, what they really needed to do. So my father saw how it was with the females in his family, how his brothers treated the women in their life. And he decided he wanted his daughter to be educated so that she would not have to be dependent on a husband that might be abusive. Because my dad he used to say when I was growing up that if a man ever hit his daughter, he would kill him. That's what my father would say. He was not going to tolerate it. So my father early on wanted me to be educated. He wanted me to be a doctor. I did not become a doctor. And if you hear an ambulance or fire truck, I hear it coming from a distance. It's a thunderstorm here. You might hear the thunder and the ambulance. But I'll probably just wait till it passes by. Probably a fire truck. Probably an accident somewhere. Because the fire truck will come if it's a car accident somewhere, and not just a fire at the house, at somebody's house. But so my father, getting back to what I was going to say, and I sort of lost track because of that. Okay, but my father wanted me to be a doctor. Okay, because he wanted to be a doctor, but he did not have the funds or the things that he needed to at that time to go to school, okay? And probably his grades weren't good enough anyway. So, but that was his dream. So he sort of put the dream off on me. He wanted me to be a doctor, but I was not a science type person. I was not interested in that. I always loved books and literature and history and art and things like that. So, I ended up, first I wanted to be a journalist. I'm glad I didn't, even though might be making more money than what I make now, likely. I'm glad I didn't, because if you're a journalist, if you're in the mainstream, you've got to go along with put out the propaganda that the rich people and the corporations and the government wants you to do. So I didn't want to be any part of that. I'm glad I didn't. Medicine was not my thing. I am interested in alternative medicine now at my age, but I wasn't interested in scientific like stuff. I love literature and history and the arts and stuff like that. Now, philosophy and Christian philosophy, religion. I like things like that. So So I ended up accidentally becoming a teacher. I'm an accidental teacher. Okay, I'm an accidental educator, and it suits me exactly. This is what I should be doing, and I also I write as well. That was what I studied in school. I spent a long time in university. Okay, I did. It was a tough ride. It was because I first went to an all women's college. The work was too easy, and it was nothing but dating culture there. I didn't like that, so I came back home, and then I went to the oldest state-run university in the country here in the United States, the University of Georgia, and that's where I got both my bachelor's and my master's degree. And it was a long haul. I took breaks, and it was very stressful, lonely, because at the time when I went, there were barely any other black students there. So I sort of had to learn to be the loner. I always been an outsider. I was an outsider in school. I was often the only black student in my classes, a lot of my classes. So I've always been an outsider. So I've never felt that, I would think, particularly when I've gotten older, I didn't feel like I had to tie myself to what other people feel that they have to tie themselves to. So so my father wanted me to, to do these things because he wanted basically to protect me. So I was not, I had opportunity. I could have been married, okay, but I chose not to be. Particularly, I'd say 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to be, okay. I was friends with a person. It was a good friend of mine, and we were colleagues together in Turkey. But he was not Turkish. He was from England. He was a retired lawyer from Britain, from England, and we were colleagues and we were good friends. But it was not like romantic love. But he actually brought up the subject of, since we got along together, maybe he was looking for a wife. He brought that up, but there are different circumstances. Also, I didn't think his health was the best because he actually had a heart attack while he was there. He recovered. So I felt like, well, it's no need for me. He was a little bit older than me, not much, maybe about 4 or 5 years older, but his health was not good. So I felt like, well, there's no need of me of marrying somebody and they might be dead and I'm a widow in a year or two. Okay, so I didn't marry, but I had the opportunity to. But it was who knows? It might have would have worked. We might have been, we were good friends. Nothing romantic, but we were good friends. We could talk to each other, and I think that's the best way to be, more than all this, romance, and that stuff fades. But anyway, back to about women. I'm all talking about romance, but let me talk about continue what I was saying about education and women. So, over the years, particularly starting since 2004, I've taught a lot of people in Muslim countries, okay, in majority Muslim countries, okay. It started out with Turkey, and then in the last 5 years, I've taught people in multiple Muslim countries in West Asia, okay. And the general stereotype, like I was saying at the beginning, is that Muslim women are oppressed. Everybody's oppressed. They can't do this and that. They have to, they can't get education. They have to marry when they're like 10 years old and marry some guy 30, 40 years older than them, all that. And this is simply not true, okay? I'm not saying there are cases where somewhere it might be somebody marrying their young daughter off to some old guy, but generally from my experiences, teaching in Turkey, where I taught 3 times, the Turkish people that I know, and also people that I've been teaching over the years in places like Saudi Arabia, Oman, United Arab Emirates, had a few Palestinians elsewhere, and looking also online and looking at the situation in Gaza. Most married couples, it seems like a lot of the married couples, they're around the same age, okay? And also in places like Gaza, where was more conservative, I noticed that a lot of times it was like it was with Turkish people that were in my town that I knew, that I was friends with, that were working on their masters and PhDs. The married ones, often both the husband and wife were getting their education at the same time. Okay, so if the husband already had his master's and was working on his PhD, his wife was doing the same thing, or she was trying to catch up with him. In Gaza, I noticed that many people, particularly, I guess among the educated classes, husband educated, wife also educated. Okay, and education is important. I I have one student, she lives in southeastern Turkey, and I've had people say, oh, the women in southeastern Turkey, they have it terrible. They have it terrible. And yes, some do, okay? My student that I teach, she told me a few weeks ago, I've been teaching her for quite some time, that her father has 2 wives. Now, in Turkey, it is illegal to have 2 wives, but among some of the Kurdish population that live in southeastern Turkey, they get extra wives, okay? Their wife is not these extra wives because Turkey is under Ataturk. Things changed under Ataturk where, under traditional Islam, before Turkey became more of a secular country with some Islamic law, men could have up to 4 wives, okay? But under Ataturk, when Turkey became a republic in 1923, only 1 wife, okay? So her father has 2 wives, and her mother and the other wife has her separate home on the same property. They don't live in the same house, same property. I had another student told me, I have a friend, she's Turkish, she said, I have a friend, has similar situation with her father. So, but my student that has this situation, her father is a polygamist, or a bigamist. My student is educated. She is around 28 years old. She might be 29 now. She got her degree. She studied pharmacy, and she owns her own pharmacy in a city. She lives in a village, but the nearby city is about a 10 minutes drive. She can actually see it from her house, see the citadel in that city. And she, this is Mardin, Turkey, in southeastern Turkey, about 30-minute drive from Syria. She has her own pharmacy, and it's a nice pharmacy. Okay. She even gave me a virtual tour of her pharmacy. She has both men and women working for her. And generally, this is coming from Turkish people. Oh, the Kurdish women are oppressed. Oh, they have all that. Yes, this is the truth in some cases, but not in all cases. She told me that she and her mother saved up money. Her mother wanted her to be educated, to have her own pharmacy, so she opened a pharmacy. Now, I have not talked to her deeply about these things. She is not married. She's still single. Generally in Turkey, many people marry in their mid to late 20s now. Generally, they get married around that age. But I'm thinking that maybe, I don't know. She hasn't talked to me about why she's not married. Well, she did tell me one reason she wasn't married. But she said, I live this village. She said, in the village here, there's nobody to marry. She said, people here don't care about anything serious. They only care about money and gossip. And she would like to meet someone, she said, that was more on the intellectual level, that cared about things deeply. So I can understand how she feels. If you're a woman and you care about certain things more deeply, and you want, you're educated, you want a husband that's like that. And it's the same for men. If they are that kind of way, generally they want a wife that's on the same level as them. Of course, there are exceptions. There are men that feel intimidated. Oh, this woman's educated. I want to feel I'm above her. And stuff. But I'm glad to see what I'm seeing with some of the people. So I've been teaching English to people in West Asia now. In West Asia, besides living in Turkey and teaching in Turkey in the past, the platform I'm on, I've been teaching people that live in West Asia in various countries. And I remember there was one woman that called me from Saudi Arabia. I was asking her, she told me I work for, I forgot the ministry of something in the government. She had a government job, and she also had a Zumba studio. So she had her own business and a government job. So I asked her, could she drive? Because it's only in recent years that it's been legal for women in Saudi Arabia to drive. Of course, there were women that were already driving. Okay, they were sneaking and doing it, particularly in the rural areas. So she said that, no, I have a driver. My husband died. And then she was telling me that, I take care of everything. I take care of my sons. I have 2 sons, and I think she had one in university. The others were in high school. She said, I take care of all their education. She said, I'm taking care of my parents, and I take care of my sister that's single. She said, I'm taking care of everybody. And I just admired that. I met other women. One of my earliest students on the platform I've been on now for almost 5 years, she was a Saudi businesswoman. She was divorced. I teach girls that are in university in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey. Many of the women are the women that I teach, managers, engineers, university lecturers, professors, doctors, One of my oldest Turkish students I taught online was in her 50s. Both she and her husband were doctors. And so if you look at these women in countries where they're supposed to be so oppressed, Muslim women are oppressed. Actually, I'm saying Muslim women that are doing better than women here, okay, where I live in the United States. Because a lot of times women here, and in some other cultures, they get into the dating game too early, okay? I've known girls that, they go to university 1 or 2 years, and they get pregnant, and all that ends, okay? They don't finish. I've noticed that these women are very focused, and being focused is very, very important. Also, in traditional Muslim culture, or Muslim culture that's going along with their teachings, dating is haram, it's forbidden, okay? So while you might have people in Western or Westernized countries focusing on dating, these women and girls will be more likely focusing on their studies, okay? So this, I told you about the Saudi lady that is taking care of business, and she's a widow, taking care of her sons and her family. I told you about my student that is a pharmacy in southeastern Turkey, where people see, southeastern Turkey is very backwards and women have it awful over there. I've taught the girls, taught Saudi teenagers and young women. They have, I've noticed in Saudi Arabia, the ones that I've taught, even if they're housewives, they have degrees. Okay, even if they're, they're going to be a housewife, because their ultimate plan is to probably try to get back into the job market, or get into the job market if they got married and they never did work at some time. I had one Saudi student. She comes every now and then. She was divorced. I found out. I had no idea that Saudi women could divorce their husbands. She divorced her husband. But she said he is raising the children. I said, well, did he take the children? She said, no, I wanted him to have the children because he's responsible. She had been a school teacher, and now she works in customer service for an airline in Saudi. And apparently that's what she wanted to do. I guess she felt that, I didn't want to ask a personal question, but perhaps she felt like marriage just wasn't for her. Marriage and motherhood, and you have to be honest, okay? Marriage is not for everybody. And one good thing in Christianity, we do say that, it's better to marry than to burn, but marriage is not an obligation, okay? If you can live a moral life and not sleeping around, it's fine. But if you feel that you're going to be, get into all kind of immoral stuff, it's best to marry, okay? And I'm trying to think of some other cases. I've had Saudi young women. I've had cases where I've had Saudi men where they were going to university. They were university students, and their wives were university students. I've had young women. There was one I talked to. They were going to school here in the university. Both she and her husband he was starting his bachelor's and she was starting her master's. So perhaps he was a little bit younger than her, because I know there was one Saudi young woman that told me, I have a lot of Saudi tales, but she was telling me that it's become popular. She said with some Saudi women, she said, like some of my friends, they're like 30 and they're marrying guys that are 24. And I said, well, your prophet, his wife was 15 years old. She said, well, true. She said, but I wouldn't want to do it. I said, well, would you want to marry somebody much older? And she said, no. She said, I would prefer to marry somebody closer to my age. So Saudi women, I talked to a group of them that they were all in the car, and they all had the cab on. You couldn't see anything but their eyes, all just black. They were dressed with their abaya and the cab, the face covering that they wear. Some of them wear. It's not obligatory in Saudi, but some women continue to do it, and they're free to do it. If they feel comfortable like that, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it being a Christian. I don't get scared when I see a hijab. I don't get scared. I'm not afraid. Okay. I think dressing modestly is good. It's really good. But they were telling me that they were going to try to wait as long as they could before they got married. They were all nearing 30, And he said, we'll marry eventually, but we like being single. So, but I feel, but my topic basically is about education. I have a friend, online friend. We've been following each other for years. She is Iraqi, and she is a dentist. All of her sisters are doctors. Their parents were doctors, and her husband is a pharmacist. They are professional people. I was trying to think of some. There's so many stories. I can tell you some great Saudi stories. I don't know if she's coming back. I hope she does. But she's a PhD. She's in her 40s. And she was one of my students. She lived in Baghdad. I met her sons, her husband, and she got her PhD. She's like 44, and she said, it was hard getting my PhD. She said, being a wife and a mother and everything, but she has her PhD, and she is an agricultural engineer. She travels around Iraq. She works for a seed company, and she travels around Iraq. She sent me a wonderful picture of her and her youngest son, who would always get up on camera and say hello, and sweet child. And so I love to see this. I love to see this. This is the model that I am not anti-marriage, but I am very pro women and girls getting their education. Why? Because number one, your husband can die. Like the woman in Saudi Arabia that was taking care of business. Your husband can die. Your husband can cheat and leave you. Your husband can decide he doesn't want you anymore. Okay? There are a lot of marriages. There was a YouTube video put up today on a channel I follow, but I hadn't watched it yet, about husbands being open about that they hate their wives. Okay? There are, two of my friends that are professors in Turkey. One teaches in Izmir and one teaches in Kars in northeastern Turkey near Armenia. One of them, the one in Kars, was telling me she was happy being single. The other one told me before she left here, before she left, she got her PhD and went back to Turkey. She was saying that my parents would like for me to marry. She said it doesn't matter with me either way, but they would like for me. She said if I could meet the right person, I would be happy. She teaches statistics. My other friend she's a mathematics professor. But she was saying, she had told me that she was not anxious about being married because she told me that I noticed that a lot of my friends that are married, they're not happy. Okay. So like I said, this is not being anti-marriage. I know women get cut down that say you don't want to get married. I heard women get cut down for not, you got the child free movement. Now when I was younger, I wanted to have children, get married, all of that. I'm not interested now. I'm just not interested. It's just, at my age when you're setting your ways and you want things to be done a certain way, you don't want somebody coming in upsetting your pattern. Okay. So I've joked and said that if I'm married, I want the husband to live somewhere else. We just see each other now and then, but not often. We just see each other now and then. But that's just a joke. But yeah, that's what I've said. But like I said, I'm happy, content the way I am. But I think it's very important in women that parents teach their daughters that it is very important to get education. Now, this is no guarantee that you're going to end up being rich or whatever, but if you are educated, you have a better chance of maybe knowing. Now, this doesn't mean that some people that don't have much education have some idea and they can't come up with ideas of things what they need to do to better their life condition, to find purpose in this life, to support themselves, to help others, whatever. Okay. But I think it is really good because that piece of paper or those pieces of paper are important. They can open up some doors. Say, for example, on the platform where I teach. Now, you don't have to have a degree to teach on the platform where I teach. But this is the thing. If you have a degree and you are certified, those of us that do, we have a better chance. We have more students come to us than the ones that don't. Okay. Now, it depends on what the students want. Some students on the platform just want to talk to a native speaker. Okay. They just want to practice English. But I teach students that want to learn business terminology, that want to prepare for the IELTS and TOEFL exams. Now, I haven't done TOEFL in a while, but I focus on IELTS. There are different things that they need and then there are teaching techniques that somebody who has not been taught does not have a degree in education does not know how to do. Okay. Like me, from having a master's degree, writing papers, having to do research, that has carried over. I have a lot of transferable skills. Okay. It's just important. It's very important for women and girls to be educated because anything could happen. Okay. And like I said, it's no guarantee. I mean, you've got women in Gaza now that have their education, but they can't practice their profession because the country is the area, their culture is being destroyed and they're being genocided and uprooted and everything. But I feel like it's always good to be prepared. It's good to be prepared. And my father wanted me to be prepared. And like I said, I'm just a poor teacher. I'm not making a lot of money. I don't. I'm just hand to mouth pretty much. I was looking at this Indian guy that used to work for BBC, and I think they fired him because he was trying to do more outside of the propaganda and tell the truth. He does his stuff independent on YouTube. He said, "Oh, I'm living hand to mouth. I'm living hand to mouth too." Okay, we're not rich people by any means. We're poor people. But I feel like I'm rich in knowledge, rich in books, rich in compassion, rich in ability. But I will tell any, I had one, I've had Saudi girls that were going to, that were finishing high school. There was one that was telling me she wanted to be in one area, but her father wanted her to be something else. He wanted her to get education though. And I thought that was so wonderful because you hear these stereotypes. Oh, they want their daughters to be married off at 15 and marry some guy 65 years old. No. She was saying her father wanted her to get an education, but he wanted her to major in something different. I think he wanted her to be an engineer or something, and she wanted to be something else. Yeah. So it's good I have learned so much with this job that I've been doing. I'm an independent contractor. I'm basically a freelancer. Okay. And I'm an EFL, or English as a foreign language teacher. But I am so glad that the stereotypes that we've been hearing for 25 years. Oh, Muslim women are oppressed. Oh, everywhere it's like Afghanistan, or they don't know why the Taliban did what they did, and different things and stuff. One thing that I heard back, and I don't want to get too deeply on Afghanistan, is that, and which I thought might be the case, because years ago there was a documentary that I saw about sex crimes in Afghanistan and women being put in prison for committing adultery and fornication, being that they had a women's prison. One Taliban was telling a guy on his channel that some of these girls will have 5 or 6 boyfriends. So they stopped school from what he was saying for that reason. So yeah, and I can understand, like I said, we have to have standards. So, but yeah, this is a video I've been wanting to do, and I know I may have rambled. I may have gotten distracted. I may have, I wonder sometimes, I'm not a great speaker, and I don't feel particularly comfortable on camera. I'll get up here, but I don't like being up here. But this is something I really want to put out there because, in this culture here in the United States, and particularly a lot of times with Black women, and you'll see it with some Black women in other cultures, what we call Black women, there are different reasons, maybe in this culture because, we had the sexual revolution and people just pretty much do what they want, and, teenage pregnancy and all that. But a lot of times when women and girls do this, years later, they see that, hey, I should have got education. While I was focusing on boys and chasing boys, I feel like as a Christian person, God will bring the right person into your life if that's his will. Okay, that's how I feel. But when you are young, and I saw a video today, this Black guy was talking about when you're 18, you shouldn't even be dating. And I agree. He said you should not even be dating. You need to be focusing on developing you and getting your education and becoming a whole person. Okay, developing discipline, all that. So it's a lot about discipline. And these women, what I love about it, they seem to be very, very disciplined because you have to be disciplined. And of course, in Turkey, you do have, you have the culture of dating, particularly in Western Turkey. But as my friend that is the professor in Kars in Eastern Turkey, she was saying, they should not be doing that because it's against their religion. Okay. So I think that it is very crucial for women and girls to have education, not to try to compete with men, not to try to one up with men. Oh, I can do what men can do. I can do anything a guy can do. I don't think that's not important. Okay. This is about, finding purpose in life and also creating your own security, because like I say, your husband can die, can leave you, can cheat on you. Some women are not going to, some women will look the other way and stay, but not all women want to be in that situation. Okay. And I really applaud the fathers in these countries that encourage their daughters to get education first, instead of saying, well, we want to marry you off. And I feel women and girls need to be protected. So that's one reason I'm against feminism, because I feel feminism puts women and girls out there on a limb and anybody can cut the limb from under them. Okay. It does not provide the right kind of protection that women and girls need. Okay. And one thing about education, I'm not saying education provides protection. Education, you also have to have wisdom. Okay, everybody doesn't have wisdom. Everybody doesn't develop wisdom during their lifetime. And wisdom does not necessarily come with age, but for some people it does. Okay, so I really want to do this video because this is something that I've wanted to talk about for quite some time. As a person that's educated, as a person that's been pondering recently, that I've been thinking, well, not just recently, I started thinking about it before my father died, that I would like to maybe get a PhD. I really started thinking about it again when I taught my Iraqi student that has her PhD. She's an agricultural engineer. But I was talking back a couple of months ago with my friend in this professor in Kars, Turkey. She was telling me that I was talking about, I sort of had that little desire, that little itch to get my PhD. And she was saying, she said, Sincerae, you're already doing what people with PhDs, what we do. And so I basically work around the same amount of hours as she does. She said, you do research, you write, all of this. I'm a novice freelance writer now. I've made my first little bit of money with an article. It hasn't come out yet because it takes a while. Now I'm planning to make a video about how to get into the freelance writing business, and just a quick video and talk about that, and basically talk about my experiences on my little journey that really started when I was a teenager, and also in university when I got some things published in the university paper and local papers and stuff. And it has not been until in the last year that I really got back serious about wanting to really do something with my writing. So I want to talk about that. But I think this is very important for women and girls. You need a foundation. Okay, you really need a foundation so that you have a better chance of taking care of yourself if something happens. I forgot about the abusive thing. If you have a husband that's abusive, you have a lot of women that have abuse. There are men being abused too. Okay, but generally, a lot of times, if it's one of the sexes or genders that's getting abused, a lot of time it's women. Okay, a lot of times women, or they're abusing both. They're both disrespectful and abusing each other. So if you are in a situation like that and you have to get out of it, it's good to have a foundation. So my thing is not pushing feminism, because I don't consider myself a feminist. I don't stand for the things, that a lot of the things that they stand for. I can't, being who I am, and also being a devout Christian, but I think it's very important that women have that foundation, that parents, fathers and mothers encourage their daughters to get their educations, even if it's like with some of the people I know that some of them, and then students I've taught where they're both going to university at the same time. I think that's great. In fact, that used to be the case a lot of times here in my country with some white university students. Years ago, in my parents' generation, some of the white university students, both the husband and the wife, were going to school. They were both getting their degrees. And I think that's great, you know, to grow with the person that you have similar values, everything. It works better. Similar backgrounds, similar values. It's works better than, you know, something, you know, you know, maybe he's educated and they have these interests and you don't care for much of anything, or it's the same way with him. He doesn't care for much of anything and you do. So it's about compatibility, but this is not about, a marriage. This is about education and women and girls. So if you, it's very important for women and girls to have something to fall back on, to establish a foundation and to find what your real purpose is for here. And that goes for men too, but it's especially important for women and girls. Okay. So I'm going to end here. I hope you enjoyed this video. This little long talk of mine, but I've been wanting to do for a while. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. So this is Sincerae. Until next time.